A group of conservative Republicans held the first of what will be a monthly meeting with the press called Conversations with Conservatives. The meeting focused on the House floor vote on raising the debt ceiling scheduled tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know some people are still coming in. We're going to go ahead and get things started. In the interest of time, we'll have to do this in an hour for another event in this room. It's great to be here. My name is Rob Bluey. I'm the Director of Digital Media at the Heritage Foundation. We do this monthly, Conversations with Conservatives. Heritage has been a proud partner of this. And today we're also doing it in conjunction with our weekly bloggers briefing, which we typically hold at Heritage, but are doing it in conjunction with Conversations with Conservatives today. We're live streaming the event on the Heritage Foundation live stream page. Those of you who are watching online can tweet us at CWC113, Conversations with Conservatives for the 113th Congress. We have 4 members so far. We'll be having a few others join us momentarily. Congressman David Schweikert from Arizona, Congressman Tim Huelskamp from Kansas, Congressman Duncan from South Carolina, and Congressman Massie from Kentucky. I thought I'd begin, we'll open it up to your questions in just a moment, but if the congressman would care to weigh in on some of the things that are coming up on the floor this week, particularly the no budget, no pay plan that was outlined at the close of last week coming out of your retreat, if you want to just kick it off and share your thoughts on how that's going to play out.
Well, I just started off by saying it's been 1,364 days today. 1,364 days today since the United States Senate has done an integral part of their job, and that is to pass a budget for our nation. Now, I came from the small business community. I ran a business for 16 years, and I had to do a budget every year. Now, when I was working alone, it was just Jeff, and I didn't have any employees. Budgeting was a lot easier. But I still had to figure out where I was last year on my expenditures, where I anticipated to be in the coming year on my income, and try to make it balance. And to come to Washington and see a dysfunctional Senate, to see a Harry Reid-led Senate that won't even do the most basic thing of governing, and that is plan for the future, and for it to be 1,364 days. I keep a running tally. Every day on my appointment card that my staff gives me, we have at the top how many days it's been since the Senate's passed a budget. Last year, State of the Union was the 1,000th day. The 1,000th day since the Senate had passed a budget. I wore a button around that had 1,000 days on it, big red button, glaring. I'm glad to see that we are starting to shine that light on the fact that the Senate has not done its job. For the last 2 years, we've seen time after time after time where the House, led by the Republicans, have done the responsible thing for America, where we have passed good energy legislation, we've passed good budgeting legislation, we've set priorities for the nation, but yet they failed to go anywhere in the Senate. And so with that, I'll yield to Mr. Huelskamp.
Well, thank you, Congressman Duncan. I certainly agree with all your comments. And we might come to a little different vote tomorrow, though, on where we head. And frankly, we've got to have a budget. But raising the debt ceiling for a budget to be named later is to me something I probably won't be able to vote for. But we're trying to follow that, understand that we have a sequester. But the resequencing issue is interesting. Only in Washington could that be a word, where we're trying to resequence what's going on here. But one thing that I still remain concerned about after 2 years up here, I still think Washington's broke. It's dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional certainly on the Senate side unable to pass the budget. It's dysfunctional when the president is going to be late on his budget. But it's dysfunctional when just a few days ago this House spent or authorized $50 billion of spending, most of which won't be spent till 2015. And I'll just say, when I visit with constituents at home, this is the worst they've come to expect in Washington. Is when the dust settles at the end of the day, Washington, no matter who seems to be in charge, is going to spend more money than they did the year before. They're going to borrow more money, and so we'll have hopefully that debate in the next 2 or 3 months. But the sequester, by the way, is law. There's no needed debate about sequester. That's the law. And I don't know how we win by somehow suggesting there's a debate over sequester, but there's certainly we have an opportunity here, hopefully, to force the Senate to budget. But again, the bill does not require the House and Senate to agree to a budget, which is the whole purpose of the 1974 Act, and so we can't hold each other accountable for that. So I think that should be an integral part of that as well.
Yield. Sequester will set discretionary spending from 1047 to, 974, which is a tremendous amount of cuts. Something that conservatives on this dais have been pushing for is to rein in government spending, shrink the size and scope of government. But we're going to have some challenges ahead because the bill that the representative from Kansas mentioned a minute ago was the Sandy bill. I put up an amendment that would cut a paltry $1 million. Now, that was $1 million with an M, not a B, okay? $1 million from that, which was a plus-up. It was an earmark for Legal Services Corporation. We weren't zeroing out LSC. We were just taking away that earmark, and it failed on the House floor. And if that's any indication of the resolve we'll have to really truly cut spending, I guess I'm doubtful.
One follow-up question. Is there a commitment to balance the budget in 10 years, or will there be a commitment from the Republican leadership to do that?
Look, one of the reasons, and this one is going to be really hard for me. Oh, sorry about that. I've actually had members who, shall we say, are those in power, those with the influence, look me in the eye and say, this House will produce a budget that balances in 10 years. And there's going to be some tough stuff in there, but it's telling the truth. It's reality. Look, I know a bunch of you in here. Many of you are very, very smart and good writers. Time to take one step sideways and deal with the reality of what's going on around us. We were doing some math yesterday, and we think as of yesterday we have about 110 million Americans on some sort of means-tested welfare program. January 1st next year, we get another 25 million Americans with Obamacare moving into that welfare system. And this isn't Medicare, this isn't Social Security. So you're heading towards a time where over half your population is on one of these programs. And this is just what's going on. This is automatic. This is just happening around us. This is our world. Unless we do something fairly dramatic and find some path to get to where we lay out a budget that says we can save ourselves and here's how we do it, what are you willing to get a promise to do that? And for myself, I may be about to make one of the hardest votes of my life because I'm trusting that look into my eyes saying, Schweikert, you're going to get your budgeted balances in 10 years. And imagine the firestorm that starts to create when people start to understand the truth and the reality of the numbers.
This is talking about tough votes. You know, my daughter calls me a freshmore because I got here early, 2 months early, and I've taken some tough votes already. But this is going to be the toughest vote that I've had since I've gotten here, because there are a lot of things to like in the strategy. Leadership has assured us we're going to be on a path to a 10-year balanced budget, that they're going to introduce a budget that balances in 10 years, when the previous benchmark was a budget that would balance in 2040. So that's something to look forward to. The CR, they assure us it's going to be limited to 974. That's the discretionary spending. That the sequester will happen. I voted for the sequester to happen when it was supposed to happen, which was January 2nd. But if we could get that to happen, you know, at the end of this 2-month extension, then that's a good thing. And we'll get the Senate on record. We'll make them produce a budget. Those are all things to like about this. But I'm still having a lot of reservations about raising the debt limit for 3 months clean. It's a hard thing to do, and I think the problem is if you're willing to raise it for 3 months unconditionally, why wouldn't you raise it for 6 months unconditionally? Or if you've raised it for 3 months unconditionally, 3 months from now, what principles do you stand on that keep you from raising it again? And I'm concerned that when we send this over at the Senate to the Senate and expose that our reservation price is free, that they're going to come back and ask for something when it gets back to the House again. It's going to get